You know when you watch Tommy Shelby in Peaky Blinders?
Mm-hmm.
There's just something about him.
Yeah.
It's magnetic.
It is.
And today, we're going to deep dive into what makes him so fascinating to watch.
Okay.
And how we can translate some of that into some real-life skills.
Awesome.
So what do you think it is about Tommy that just grabs you?
It's so interesting because he's very still.
He is.
But it's not passive.
Right.
It's like this weaponized stillness.
I like that.
You know what I mean?
Weaponized stillness.
Yeah, like he's working on a completely different level than everybody else.
It's true. And even in a high-pressure situation, he moves so deliberately.
Right.
It's almost like he's in slow motion.
It's like he's slowing down time.
Yes.
And I think that's a really big power move because when you slow down, you're forcing other people to slow down with you.
Right. You're controlling the pace.
Exactly.
So that's a really interesting way to think about it.
And there's some psychology behind that too.
Okay.
You've heard of power poses? So there's research that shows that when you have an expansive posture,
Yeah.
it actually reduces your stress hormones and boosts your confidence.
Wow.
So he is literally like hacking his biology
Right.
by moving slowly and deliberately.
So it's not just about looking cool. He's actually making himself feel more powerful.
Right, exactly.
But isn't there a danger in moving slowly in a tense situation?
Yeah.
You know, wouldn't that make you a target?
Well, and that's where I think it gets really interesting because he's choosing very strategically when to be still.
Right.
It's not that he's oblivious. He's making that choice.
Okay.
And it's almost like, think about a predator in the animal kingdom,
Yeah.
like a lion or something.
Right.
They don't just like wildly run around all the time.
Right.
They're very still, and then they strike at the right moment.
Okay, so she's like the human predator.
I mean, in a way.
Okay.
But I think it's more about understanding that stillness can be a form of power.
Right.
It's about choosing your moments.
Yeah.
And not just reacting.
Okay. All right, let's talk about another thing about Tommy Shelby that I find very interesting.
Okay.
His eyes.
Yeah.
He's got this like kind of unblinking stare that can be very intimidating.
Right. The eyes are so fascinating.
They are.
There's so much research on the power of eye contact.
Yeah.
And he knows how to use it to his advantage.
Right.
He holds your gaze, but he's not like trying to start a staring contest.
He's not. It's
Yeah.
more like he's sizing you up.
Exactly. It's about finding that balance between dominance
Right.
and engagement.
Yeah.
So he holds your gaze just long enough to make his presence known.
Right.
And then he breaks eye contact.
Yeah.
But he breaks it to the side,
Right.
never down, because that can signal weakness or submission.
I see.
So by breaking to the side, he's still maintaining control
Okay.
without being overly aggressive.
So projecting confidence without being too much.
Exactly. And there's science behind that.
Oh, really?
There have been studies that show that leaders who modulate their eye contact are actually seen as more trustworthy.
Wow. I always thought you're supposed to like hold eye contact to build trust.
You are, but it's not about staring somebody down.
Right.
It's about using eye contact strategically.
Okay.
And I think that's what he does so well.
So we've got the slow movements. We've got the eye contact.
Yeah.
Let's talk about another aspect of his stillness.
Okay.
The silence.
Oh, yeah.
He uses silence like a weapon.
It's like the physics of silence.
I love that.
Right. It's like he understands that silence can be just as powerful as words.
Sometimes even more powerful.
Totally.
And it makes you so uncomfortable when he does it.
Right, because it creates this tension,
Yeah.
this anticipation.
Yes.
And it forces the other person to like fill the void
Right. They just start talking.
and fill the space.
And while they're doing that, he's just gathering information,
Right.
assessing the situation,
Yeah.
and figuring out his next move.
So it really is like a weapon.
It can be, and it can be a tool for control
Good.
because he's not reacting immediately.
He's taking control of the tempo.
Yeah,
He's making the other person wait.
it's true.
And that subconsciously puts him in a position of power.
So it's not just about being quiet.
No.
It's about being quiet at the right time.
Exactly. It's a form of communication.
Okay.
It conveys confidence.
Yes.
It conveys thoughtfulness,
Mm-hmm.
sometimes even danger.
Yeah, I'm starting to see how all these things work together.
Yeah.
The slow movements, the
Mhm.
eye contact,
Whereas
the silence. Yeah, to create this aura of power around him.
I agree.
It's really interesting.
It is.
And it's not about like being loud and aggressive.
Right.
It's about controlling the energy of
Yeah.
the situation,
That's such a great point.
which is a very powerful thing to do.
Yes.
So his power really comes from his control.
Absolutely.
And that control comes from stillness.
I love that.
All right, but how do we take that
Yeah.
and apply it to our own lives?
Good question.
You know, we're not running around Birmingham with a gang of razor-wielding lads.
Well, that's true, but
Hopefully.
hopefully.
But you know what I mean.
I know what you mean.
Like, how can we actually use these things?
Well, you can use it in a boardroom.
Okay.
You can use it in negotiation.
Yeah.
Anywhere, really.
So the principles are the same?
My principles are the same.
Okay. So how do we do it?
Well, there are a few things that we can try.
Okay.
We've got the 3-second rule. We've got the trench stare mirror work.
Oh, yeah.
We've got leverage mapping.
All right, so much to unpack there.
Yeah.
Let's take a quick break and we'll come back and we'll get into all of those.
Sounds good.
Okay, so we're back and we're ready to put this weaponized stillness into action.
Let's do it.
You mentioned some techniques we could use to cultivate that quiet power.
Mm-hmm.
Let's start with the 3-second rule.
Okay.
What is that?
So the 3-second rule is so simple, but so powerful.
Okay.
It's basically just pausing for 3 seconds
Okay.
before you respond to anything.
Okay.
It doesn't seem like much,
Right.
but it can totally change how an interaction goes.
So I'm picturing this.
Yeah.
Someone asked me a tough question in a meeting.
Mm-hmm.
Instead of like blurting out the first thing that comes to mind,
Yeah.
I just sit there for 3 seconds.
You just wait.
What good does that do?
A lot of good, actually.
Oh.
First of all, it buys you time to think.
Okay.
So instead of reacting emotionally,
Right.
you have a chance to actually like process what's going on
Yeah.
and formulate a response.
Okay.
But the second thing it does is it projects this confidence.
Okay.
Like think about Tommy.
Yeah.
He never seems rushed
He never does.
or flustered.
Right.
That pause just conveys this control and deliberation.
So I look like I'm in control even if I'm freaking out inside.
Exactly.
That's good.
Yeah.
But I gotta say, 3 seconds can feel like a really long time,
It can.
especially when you're under pressure.
It does.
So how do you actually do that?
It takes practice. Just like anything.
Right.
Just start incorporating those pauses into
Oh.
your everyday conversations. Like
Okay.
even with your family,
Okay.
you know, at dinner.
Okay.
And eventually it'll become second nature.
That makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, I'm willing to give it a shot.
Oh.
All right, let's talk about the trench stare mirror work.
Oh, yeah.
This sounds intense.
This one's a little more intense,
Okay.
but it's really good for developing that unwavering gaze.
Okay.
So it's pretty simple.
Okay.
Set a timer for 1 minute
Yeah.
and stare at yourself in the mirror
Okay.
without blinking.
Just stare.
Just stare.
I can't smile.
No smiling.
No frowning.
Just like pure eye contact.
Direct eye contact with yourself.
That sounds so weird.
It's a little uncomfortable,
Yeah.
but that's kind of the point.
Okay.
It forces you to confront your own, like, self-consciousness about eye contact.
I see.
We're so used to looking away,
Yeah.
avoiding eye contact,
Totally.
that it can feel aggressive to hold someone's gaze.
Mhm.
And he doesn't shy away from that.
No, he uses it.
Right.
So by practicing the trench stare,
Yeah.
you're basically desensitizing yourself to that.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm adding that to my to-do list.
Cool.
All right, leverage mapping.
Okay.
That sounds a little more strategic.
Yes. This is more about taking those gangster skills
Okay.
and applying them to like the business world
Right.
or your professional life.
Okay.
So leverage mapping is all about figuring out your strengths,
Okay.
your opponent's weaknesses,
Uh-huh.
and like the key points of influence
Okay.
in any situation.
So I'm creating a battle plan.
You're creating a battle plan.
Okay.
But for business,
With a little Machiavellian.
it can be if you use it the wrong way.
Right.
But remember, we're talking about adapting these tactics for the modern world.
We're not going to become gangsters.
We're not trying to be gangsters.
But we want to be more effective.
We want to be effective.
Okay. So how do we create this leverage map?
Okay, so first,
What am I looking for?
you want to identify your goals
Okay.
for the interaction.
For whatever it is I'm doing.
Whatever it is, yeah.
Okay.
What are you trying to achieve?
Mm-hmm.
What are the obstacles?
Okay.
And then analyze your strengths.
Okay.
What skills do you have?
Yeah.
What knowledge do you have?
Mhm.
What resources? What are your opponent's weaknesses?
So it's know yourself, know your enemy.
It's Sun Tzu.
Yeah. Okay.
Once you understand kind of the lay of the land,
Yeah.
you can start to identify the leverage points.
Okay.
What are the things that you control
Mm-hmm.
that the other person needs or wants?
Okay.
What are their pain points?
So finding those pressure points
The pressure points.
to get what I want.
It's not always about exploiting them,
Okay.
but it's about understanding what motivates them.
Right.
And framing your arguments in
Yeah.
a way that resonates with them.
So it's manipulation, but like good
It's
manipulation.
strategic communication.
There we go.
Yeah.
I like that better.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm starting to see how this all ties together.
Mm-hmm.
It's about being strategic,
Yes.
knowing your strengths and weaknesses,
Absolutely.
and kind of like having all these tools in your arsenal to achieve your goals.
Exactly.
It's almost like he's playing chess,
He is.
always thinking a few steps ahead
A few steps ahead.
and knowing what the other person's going to do
Totally.
before they do it.
I love that analogy.
Yeah.
It's not about brute force.
Right.
It's about, like, intellectual dominance.
I like that.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've talked about stillness. We've talked about the 3-second rule, trench stare, leverage mapping.
Leverage mapping.
But Tommy's not just nonverbal.
Yeah.
He knows how to use his words
He does.
to get what he wants. So let's get into that.
Okay.
What are some of his tactics with his language?
So he's really good at what we call carrot and stick language.
Okay.
So dangling a reward, but also subtly hinting at the consequences
Okay.
if you don't do what he wants.
Interesting.
And he also understands the power of, like, downward inflection
Yeah.
and other vocal techniques
Sound more authoritative.
to project authority.
Okay, let's get into all that. So we're back and ready to talk about Tommy's words.
Yeah.
He's a man of few words,
He is.
but when he speaks, people listen.
Definitely.
So it's not just what he says, it's how he says it.
It's all about strategy.
Right.
Remember, he went from running these, like, small-time gambling operations
Right. Backstreet stuff?
to dealing with politicians.
Yeah.
Powerful businessmen.
Yeah.
He knows how to adapt his language
Right. To get what he wants.
to get the results he wants.
So you mentioned before the break this carrot and stick language.
Oh, yeah.
Can you break that down a little bit more?
Yeah, so think about that classic phrase,
Yeah.
an offer you can't refuse.
Right.
He's really good at that.
Okay.
He presents you with these options, but it's like the choice is already made for you.
Okay.
He dangles that carrot, the reward,
Yeah.
and then subtly hints at the stick.
Right. The consequences.
The consequences of not doing what he wants.
So it's like this subtle manipulation.
It's persuasion.
Persuasion. Yeah.
He's framing the situation to benefit him.
So how would that work in real life?
Okay, let's say you're negotiating a salary.
Okay. Yeah.
Instead of just saying, I want this much money,
Right.
you could say something like, I'm confident that I can help us reach our goals this year
Yeah.
with my skills and experience.
Mhm.
And a salary of this much would really reflect the value I bring.
Okay. So the carrot is like helping them reach their goal.
Exactly.
And the stick is like, hey, I know what I'm worth.
Yes.
And I could go somewhere else.
Exactly.
That's pretty smart.
It is.
Like that.
It's a subtle shift,
Yeah.
but it can be very effective.
Okay. So it's not just the words themselves, though, right?
Oh,
There's something about his voice.
his voice is very powerful.
It is.
He often speaks really quietly,
Yeah.
almost in a whisper.
Yeah. You have to lean in.
You have to lean in to hear him,
Yeah.
which makes you feel like you're in on something
Right.
because it's a secret.
Yes.
And then he uses this downward inflection
Oh, yeah.
where he ends his sentences on a lower pitch.
It sounds very final.
It sounds very final.
Like no more discussion.
Like, this is how it's going to be.
Interesting.
And that can really change how people perceive you.
So are there any other vocal tricks that we can learn from Tommy?
Well, he's a master of the pause.
The silence.
Not the silence.
He loves the silence.
He uses it strategically. He'll pause before answering a question,
Right.
which builds the tension,
Right.
makes people uncomfortable.
Yeah.
But it also gives him time to think,
Okay.
to choose his words carefully.
So he's controlling the tempo
He's in control.
and the energy.
Absolutely.
Wow.
It can really throw people off balance
Yeah.
if you just stay silent.
I can imagine.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've talked about a lot of really interesting stuff today.
We have
Stillness, the 3-second rule, trench stare, leverage mapping.
so many good strategies.
But what would you say is like the main takeaway?
The main takeaway, I think, is that power isn't just about being aggressive
Okay.
or loud.
Right.
It's about control.
Right.
It's about understanding how people work
Yeah.
and using that to your advantage.
Okay.
So yeah, master the stillness.
Mm-hmm.
Use your words carefully.
Yeah.
And project that confidence.
It's almost like he's a puppeteer.
He is.
Just subtly manipulating people
He's always in control.
to get what he wants.
He's always a step ahead.
Well, I think we can all learn a thing or two from Tommy Shelby.
Definitely.
Even if we don't want to be gangsters.
Right.
So next time you're going into a big meeting or a negotiation
Yeah.
or just want to feel more confident,
Yeah.
channel your inner Tommy.
I love it.
Take a deep breath.
Slow down.
Slow down. Hold that gaze.
Yeah.
Use your words wisely.
You got this.
And you might just surprise yourself.
I think you will.
All right. That's all the time we have for today.
Thanks for having me.
This was so much fun.
It was.
Until next time,
Stay sharp.
keep your eyes open.
And remember,
Power is everywhere.
exactly.